Welcome to today's presentation on leadership and athletics as we look at some of the desirable attributes we look for in interscholastic athletic administrators and coaches. Along the way, we will learn a little bit about my leadership journey and how my growth has led me to reach positions I have desired for a long time. No leadership journey is the same, and while some arrive at their higher level leadership capabilities before others, the most important aspect is that you get there. It took me until I was nearing 40 years of age before I asked myself, why do I want to be a head basketball coach at the high school level? It was at this point I knew I had to change my why. In the past, I wanted to affect change within a program and turn them into a perennial winner while managing with a heavy hand at times to push for the best outcomes. After being connected with the Positive Coaching Alliance and reading material from Proactive Coaching, I knew I wanted to change my approach to focus more on preparation that it takes to create a winner both on and off the court. I began to think of my coaching style in terms of legacy and the impact for the players I would be fortunate enough to coach, and I made a conscious decision to focus on process over outcome. In my 4 years of coaching boys middle school basketball since I made this change, my teams have recorded 62 wins versus 5 losses. Most importantly, through my interactions with the players, I have built a program that is respected by opponents, opposing coaches, officials, parents, and most importantly, the student athletes. This success and the relationship I was able to build with my players helped me earn the opportunity to be the head varsity basketball coach for the upcoming season. One of the items I emphasized in my interview was that we, as a program, were going to focus on the process of building our culture and preparing the right way in practice every day. The goal is to provide the leadership to get them to be great teammates and competitors, and then take these lessons and skills to become great husbands and great fathers in the future. Servant leadership is defined as the authority figure in servant leadership environments attempts to promote innovation, empower employees, and assure the well-being of those around them. Servant leadership also aims to develop leadership qualities in others. Kenton, 2022. I feel very fortunate in that a previous principal I worked with in the parochial school saw something in me that made her believe I could be a leader. To me, this was an example of servant leadership. She saw qualities in me that at the time I didn't know I possessed. It made me start to believe I could achieve and be successful in a leadership position. Now that I am starting to put these skills to work as a head coach and hopefully as an athletic administrator in the future, I want to be able to not only have servant leadership qualities and how I choose to lead, but also be able to identify these qualities in others. Another important piece of leadership is having self-awareness of what your strengths and weaknesses are and how you can work towards improving all aspects of how to provide leadership. Goleman defines self-awareness as the ability to recognize and understand your moods, emotions, and drive, as well as their effect on others. I believe that most people have this capability or ability to honestly assess themselves as it relates to their actions or how they interact with other people. The problem with this honest self-awareness is that sometimes people recognize the negative pieces of their personality and don't want to address these issues publicly, choosing to say, this is how I am, and I don't want to change. I think it is important that we as leaders choose to identify these issues within ourselves, recognize when these negative traits occur, admit it when it happens, and research how we can overcome these challenges. Goleman also lists 3 characteristic traits that help promote self-awareness, and they are self-confidence, realistic self-evaluation, and self-deprecating humor. I believe that leaders create their self-confidence in their knowledge of what they're doing, but also in the fact that if they do not have the answer, they are willing to research best practices to help find the most fitting solution to a problem or concern. The second trait, realistic self-evaluation, is something that many people possess, but not all are willing to allow others to know their thoughts or be willing to make the necessary changes to grow through their challenges. In order to be honest with those that you lead, you first need to be honest with yourself and recognize what you do well and what aspects you need to seek growth. The last trait, self-deprecating humor, is something that I've had throughout my adult life. I have no issue taking humorous jabs at myself and letting those who I work with, either professionally or as a coach, know that I recognize certain behaviors of mine and how they can be viewed from those on the outside. This type of humor can help to strengthen relationships as we are showing those in our charge that we have many of the same challenges they do, such as lack of confidence, indecisiveness, etc. And they can relate to us much better when they see our challenges are also common. Another factor that greatly affects persons who are in leadership positions is emotional intelligence. Goleman defines emotional intelligence as the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our own emotions and recognize, understand, and influence the emotions of others. In my journey to become a coach and leader I wanted to be, this has been the greatest challenge for me. Having the ability to effectively manage my emotions, especially in high stress, high anxiety situations. Over these last 4 years along my coaching journey, I have made a conscientious effort to take a deep breath before having a reaction or speaking when these situations arise. I can honestly say that I am not perfect in these moments, as I still have had a handful of impulsive reactions to difficult situations that when I self reflect later, I think of a better way to react. The other aspect that has helped me become a better leader and not have negative reactions is my focus on process over the outcome and my belief that my goals are greater than winning one game in the moment. I want to show my players, parents, opposing coaches, and officials that our influence is greater than winning any single game. Burns defined transformational leadership as leaders inducing followers to act for certain goals that represent the values and the motivations, the wants and needs, the aspirations and expectations of both leaders and followers. Essentially, the leader is getting the follower to buy into the cultural, behavioral, and moral expectations of the program through persuasion and giving them ownership. As a coach or as an athletic administrator, we want to be transformational in how we lead to promote positive growth and get our student athletes to believe in something bigger than themselves. In the past, I would consider myself to be a transactional coach, or I do this, this, and this for you players, and in return, I demand respect that you respect my leadership. Do as you're told and do not make mistakes. Transactional leadership can be defined as transactional leadership based on a transaction or exchange of something of value the leader possesses or controls that the follower wants in return for his or her services. Homrig, 2001. Homrig goes on to explain that transformational leadership and transactional leadership are not at odds with one another, but can complement each other as the circumstances dictate. In coaching or in the position of an athletic administrator, it is important to note that both of these styles of leadership are important and effective when used appropriately. The last style of leadership I want to incorporate into my style is situational leadership. It uses a model that focuses on the growth of the follower as they work towards becoming the best version of themselves. In the educational athletics setting at the middle and high school level, I find this approach to be very effective as most of the student athletes we are working with are still working towards what their belief systems are while listening to trusted adults to help them navigate life and find success. Schermerhorn states that situational leadership focuses on the appropriateness or readiness of the follower. In this scenario, we meet each individual where they are as it relates to the model which is provided on the slide. As you reference the visual, you see the model begins on the right with telling, then the next step becomes selling, the third becomes participating, and lastly, the leader can begin delegating to those he or she leads, allowing them to take ownership of the goals and values of the program. When we're thinking about interscholastic athletics, and we're looking at middle school as well, we would say that at the middle school level, we're probably more towards the first two, where there's a lot of telling and selling them to get the buy-in. And then as they get towards the high school and develop a little bit more, not only physically, but emotionally and intellectually, we move into the next two steps of this phase. This is where I, as a coach or athletic administrator, want to get to at some point in every season. The players take on more and more, and they grow into our culture and meet expectations and become the drivers of how we prepare and compete. Having researched this leadership style has made me a better coach because when I prepare practice plans throughout the year, I have this model in mind and I look to ensure we are moving forward in this process. In developing my personal philosophy and using the worksheet as a research, I wanted to focus on what my goals would be as an athletic administrator to have a positive impact on both coaches and student athletes. As an athletic director, I want to be supportive, positive resource for all of the coaches that are running our programs. I want to start by building strong relationships with my coaches by having open and honest communication, support them behind the scenes, and facilitate their growth by providing educational opportunities to assist them in becoming the best leader they can be for our student athletes. Effective leaders must be able to inspire, motivate, and persuade those around them to achieve organizational goals. However, leaders often fail to devote as much time to developing their communication skills as they do to honing other business skills, experts say, according to Minor. This is where some athletic directors fall short, or at least a few of them that I have worked with in the past. Obviously, getting the opportunity to pull the curtain back and see the day to day responsibility allows me to give grace when they maybe miss a chance to communicate an important message or are less than tactful in their communication. My goal when given an opportunity to lead an athletic program is to be conscientious of how I communicate in all circumstances, whether it be with a coach, a student athlete, parent, official, or colleague. I want to have the emotional intelligence to always give a thoughtful response and communicate in a calm and positive tone as much as possible. In developing this philosophy, I wanted to ensure I included what the work was, what the goals were, and how I would execute meeting these goals. I believe that a philosophy is something that evolves over time and should be revisited to ensure growth as an athletic director as well. My current leadership style can be summed up as a mix of servant, transformational, which includes transactional, and situational styles. I do not believe there is a one size fits all style of leadership, and it is important to include aspects of different styles to effectively lead as a coach or athletic administrator. As I mentioned before, my way of leading changed significantly 4 years ago, and I began to focus on process over outcome while looking to build positive relationships with the players under my charge. This focus led to some great results, not only on the court, but also in how my relationships with players, parents, and officials blossomed into just about mostly positive interactions. In the photo on the slide, you can see the fruits of our labor with the first group I coached after wising up. This was after our second year together, as I coached them in seventh grade as well, where they also went 16-0 that year. All of that success in competition was bred by how we prepared every day in practice and the standards they were held to within the program in their academics and their behavior outside of basketball as well. The goal as a coach is to build the culture and hold them accountable to it. Prepare to win every day, establish great relationships with the coach player and player to player, and find moments where we can help them find the lessons on the court to be taken to help them become great citizens for our communities. Bruce Brown, the creator of proactive coaching, defines a coach's significance as a philosophy for coaches and teams to help intentionally create character based team cultures on purpose, develop a roadmap for team leadership, evolve confident, tough minded, fearless competitors by training their coaches for excellence and significance. Coaches of significance have athletes that are confident, fearless, team first, and demonstrate great sportsmanship. Goals that all programs, especially at the interscholastic levels, should strive for. When we as leaders are able to understand and execute the effective leadership styles we have discussed here, we can take pride in knowing we are doing things the right way to the best of our abilities while helping to facilitate our young people into becoming great citizens in our communities. Through effective, positive communication, we will gain the respect of all those we serve, including coaches, student athletes, parents, officials, and our competitors. Our impact cannot always be something that is measurable, but we know that when we help facilitate our coaches' growth, they in turn take this knowledge and skill and are able to positively affect student athletes they are working with. Finally, when leaders within your district or other leaders outside of your program take notice of the positive climate and culture you have established, they begin to reach out to get the roadmap to see how you have achieved this success. In this circumstance, you are now having an impact that extends beyond your community and begins to cause a culture shift in how we manage and compete at the interscholastic level, giving you the opportunity to increase your impact for those in all interscholastic activities.